Couple things we need to mention before we get started. Several of our congregation are working out at the State Fair today with Power Light, so please be aware of that. 6 o'clock? Or is it longer than that?
It starts at noon.
Starts at noon and goes till
8 o'clock tonight.
8 o'clock tonight.
Mandy's the last one.
Mandisa will be the last one tonight, so, yeah. Okay. Also, some people that you need to be in prayer for. Jamie's looking at some more tests, so keep her in your prayers. And Roxy had oral surgery this week, so she's hurting. And Jerry didn't get very good news. So keep Roxy and Jerry in your prayers too as well. God, are you even listening? Where are you? Do you even care? When are you going to do something? I'm not going to pray anymore. It doesn't do any good. What'd you bring us out here just to die for? Why didn't you just let us die back there? Do you even see what's going on? Do you care? When are you going to show up? Boy, we sure don't like that person that's leading us. I don't think they even know what's going on. I don't want to do what they're doing. I don't want to follow them. Let's have a meeting. We'll discuss this. And then we'll take a vote. Majority wins. We'd be better off back where we were. Sounds a lot like a lot of churches, doesn't it? Only it's Israel. 400 plus years in slavery in Egypt. They didn't start out in slavery. They went down while Joseph was number 2 in the land. They got the best choice in Egypt. They were in Goshen. But Joseph's dead. That Pharaoh's gone. And anybody that knew anything about Joseph or that Pharaoh, long gone. History teaches us that maybe a foreign people had defeated Egypt and had taken over and adopted the religious practices and the political practices of the Egyptians, and they didn't know Joseph. That would be like somebody not knowing about George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or the Shah heard around the world. Lexington, Concord, didn't know anything about Gettysburg, Antietam, Appomattox Courthouse. We haven't been taken over by a foreign power here in America, but I'm beginning to wonder if anybody here remembers those things. Because suddenly, we have people who want to do things that this country was never set up to do. In fact, diametrically opposed to everything this country was founded upon. That's what's going on in Egypt. And suddenly a favored people become slaves to be exploited. They fear the slaves because the slaves are more prolific at having babies than the natural-born Egyptians, and they can already count the fact that they're soon going to be outnumbered. We got to do something about this. So let's just kill all the baby boys. And we look at that in Scripture and think, well, how horrible. Well, since Roe versus Wade in the United States of America, it's not just baby boys that gets killed, it's every baby gets killed. Over 60 million and counting. Some say 3,000 a day. And now in Illinois, they can be killed while their head's coming out because they're not born yet. Or if they do happen to come out and things aren't going right, you can just let them lay there and let nature take its course. So I'm just basically saying, I don't think things are any different than they were then. In fact, they may be worse. We're talking about Israel. But I'm wondering if things have even changed at all. God sets up and asks Moses to go be his spokesman. And Moses doesn't want to do it. Moses says, well, who am I going to tell him sent me? The God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob has sent me to you. You couldn't even say that in today's world because too many families don't have that background. They don't have a mom and dad to believe. They don't have a grandma and grandpa to believe. They don't have a great-greats to believe. They're not blessed with the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They don't have that history. And even those who do sometimes forget. Moses basically says, Lord, send somebody else. Lord, send somebody else. Scripture says that the Lord's anger burned against Moses. How badly do you want God's anger to burn against you when you dare tell him no? Well, let me call the pastor or the pastors and let them handle it. God's saying, that's not what I told you to do. Let somebody else do it. I don't have to say anything. I don't have to be out there in front. Let somebody else do it. Well, God presided to somebody else. He sent Aaron to be the spokesman. And he tells him to go to Pharaoh. Oh, and by the way, Moses was one of those baby boys that was supposed to be killed. And his mother couldn't bring herself to do that because she honored God more than feared Pharaoh. So she took a boat and made it out of the water reeds and sealed it, put him in the Nile River, and had the presence of mind to know where Pharaoh's daughter would be taken aback. And sets it in the river. And what do you know? Pharaoh's daughter finds a baby in a basket. Find it interesting that a lot of times women are not as hard-hearted as men. And in this case, she takes the baby that's supposed to be dead, takes him home and says, Daddy, can I keep him? And he's raised in Pharaoh's household to be Pharaoh's successor. He gets the education, the economics, the spiritual side of things, as the Egyptians understand it. He is raised to be a Pharaoh. But somehow or other, he's not allowed to forget where he came from. What I find interesting, not only did they put Moses in the bulrushes to be found, but put his daughter Miriam close by. And so when Pharaoh's daughter finds the baby, she goes, I know somebody that can nurse him. Because back then they didn't have Similac and all that stuff. And so Moses' own mother, by God's blessing, gets to nurse him till he's weaned. Isn't God good? And so when Moses sees a Egyptian beating on a Hebrew, Moses took the Egyptian out with his bare hands, killed him, buried him in the sand. Didn't think anybody noticed it. Till later on, Moses sees two Hebrews getting into it, and he tries to intervene. And they said, "Who are you? You going to kill us like you did that Egyptian?" And at that point, Moses knew he was going to have to leave. He ends up out in the desert of Midian. There's a priest of Midian who worships the Most High God. He's not of Jacob's people. He's a distant cousin. But somehow or other, the priest of Midian worships the same God. Moses ends up marrying that priest's daughter, Zipporah. And they have a child. Moses has his account at the burning bush. He's a shepherd. He's looking over the landscape. He's protecting the sheep. And he sees this bush up on the hill. And it's burning and burning and burning and burning and burning and burning. Well, that's weird. So he goes up to check it out. And that's God's calling card. Moses, take off your shoes, because the ground upon which you stand is holy ground. Moses does. See, he's been trained in the way of Yahweh too. He knows who he's talking to. And it's at that point that God says, "I have for centuries seen my people's anguish, and I'm ready to deliver. And you're going to go back and talk to Pharaoh." And Moses is going, Why do you think God made sure that Moses was trained in the court of Pharaoh? So he would know Pharaoh's ways. He would know Pharaoh's thinking. He would know about those priests and magicians and sorcerers. He wasn't going to be surprised by anything. But Moses said, "Pick somebody else." You ever known the theme? You all know about the 10 plagues. You all know about Aaron and Moses throwing the rod down, becomes a snake, and the magicians and the sorcerers throw their rods down, they become snakes. In other words, Pharaoh's going to say, "Big deal, my guys can do that too." The only thing they don't tell you is that Moses and Aaron's snakes sucked up the other ones. That should tell you something. When you get to the plague of gnats, because you've had the frogs and you've had the river turn to blood, and for some reason, to a point, the devil can do things too. And so Pharaoh's guys can turn the water to blood. Pharaoh's guys come up with frogs. But when Moses took the rod and smote the dust of the earth and made gnats, there wasn't anything else that Pharaoh's people could duplicate. From that point on, the gods of Egypt are being dismantled. Because if you look at it, every plague is aimed at a god. And the God on high is taking down the gods of Egypt before he takes down the God in the flesh, as they believe it, Pharaoh. He dismantles them one by one by one. They were to put the blood on the side post and over the top of the door. And when the death angel saw the blood, "When I see the blood, I will pass over you, and I will kill the firstborn of everyone in Egypt, from Pharaoh on his throne to his slave in the hut." Even the animals. Firstborn. All of them. Wiped out. Pharaoh relents and lets them go. God is the one directing them, by the way. They're headed one direction, and God tells them to turn back and go another way. And they are parked beside the Red Sea. And as far as I'm concerned, this is a tremendous miracle like the world had never seen before. It wasn't a muddy little marsh sea of reeds. It was the Red Sea. They can argue all they want, but the fact remains is God put them in a position where they couldn't do anything about it. He's a pillar of cloud by day to give them direction. And He's a pillar of fire by night. God places Himself between the Egyptian army and His people in the Red Sea. And you'd think the people would be grateful. Well, when they saw Pharaoh and the chariots are coming, they just about yanked Moses down and stomped on him. They're terrified. They cry out to the Lord, and they said to Moses, "Was it because there were no graves in Egypt that you brought us out in the desert to die? What have you done to us by bringing us out of Egypt? Didn't we say to you in Egypt, 'Leave us alone, let us serve the Egyptians'? It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the desert." Look what you've done to us. Why didn't you just leave us alone? Oh boy. Moses' answer was, "Do not be afraid. Stand firm. Quit shaking in your knees. Quit prancing around like you got to go to the bathroom. Like you're terrified and you're melting away to jelly. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance of the Lord." It was miraculous that God brought them out of Egypt with His mighty arm, and He puts them there beside the Red Sea. And He tells Moses to stretch out. And it's because I'm a child of the 50s and 60s and 70s, my Moses is always going to be the Ten Commandments of Charlton Heston.
Yep.
And that thing pulls back on both sides. And God didn't do it halfway. It says they went through on dry ground. When you've got, I don't know how much water, I don't know how deep it was, 60, 80 feet deep. When you got that much water pressed down on land, it's muddy. They went through on dry ground. They get through on the other side, and the Egyptians see that and they go, "Okay, let's go get them." God lets the whole Egyptian army get in the middle of the Red Sea, and He tells Moses to take his staff down, and God lets the wind bring the water together, and the whole Egyptian army, to the last man, every man, chariot, horse, drowned. And the people are on the other side going, "You will see the deliverance of the Lord." Should have took care of it, right? Well, Moses led Israel from the Red Sea, and they went into the desert of Shur. They've traveled 3 days. Haven't found water. We're talking 1,000,000+ people and the herds. They come to Marah, and the water's bitter. So the people grumbled against Moses, saying, "What are we to drink?" Moses goes before the Lord, and He tells him to take a piece of wood, throw it in the water, and the water becomes sweet to drink. They have all they want. Then they come to Elim. There's 12 springs there, 70 palm trees, and they camp there. They set out from Elim, and they went to the desert of Sin between Elim and Sinai on the 15th day of the 2nd month after they'd come out of Egypt. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. Do you see a pattern here? You see a pattern? He brings them out of Egypt, gets them across the Red Sea, 3 days out. What have you done for us lately? Provides water. Just a couple weeks later, they're grumbling again. What have you done for us lately? I'm going to say something I probably shouldn't say, but the Holy Spirit's laid it upon my heart, and it's the one thing crippling our country right now. It's what's going on right here. The entitlement mentality. You owe me. And it's not new with what's going on in the United States of America right now. This is what's going on right here. This is an entitlement. The only time I heard a semblance of thank you was when Miriam starts singing a song of praise to God on that bank of the Red Sea. In the desert, the whole community grumbled against Moses and Aaron. They said, if only we had died by the Lord's hand in Egypt, where we sat around pots of meat and ate all the food we wanted. But you brought us out here in this desert to starve this entire assembly to death. We want to go back to Egypt. We want the pots of meat, the melons, the cucumbers. So I guess I was not being real nice this morning when I was turning down cucumbers. Sorry, Lord. In the evening, God told them, Moses and Aaron, to say to the Israelites, you will know that it was the Lord who brought you out of Egypt. In the morning you will see the glory of the Lord, because he has heard your grumbling against him. Who are we that we should grumble against us? Moses also said, you'll know that it was the Lord when he gives you meat to eat in the evening and all the bread you want in the morning, because he's heard you grumbling against him. Who are we? You're not grumbling against us, but against the Lord. Then Moses told Aaron, say to the entire Israelite community, come before the Lord, because he's heard your grumbling. And the Lord said to Moses, I heard the grumbling of the Israelites. Tell them at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will be filled with bread. Then you will know that I am the Lord your God. That evening, God caused a great wind, and they had quail come into the camp like you wouldn't believe. And I've only had quail once in my life, and it's mighty fine eating. And the manna, that special bread that fell from heaven that God told them to collect, tasted like coriander seed and honey. So when God provides, He does the best. But I want you to know something. I'm part of the story that didn't appear in here because they can't tell you everything. God doesn't take to grumbling very well because He made sure, and I don't remember the number, but thousands died at that place with the meat of the quail rotting in their teeth. It was called Kiriath. I just lost the other part. Kiriath something, I apologize. But anyway, it's translated graves of lust. God said, you want meat? I'll give you meat. And you're going to die with it rotting in your mouth. Of course, later they're going to grumble again over this cursed manna. Manna 6 days every day, and the seventh day you don't pick it up, because if you do pick it up and try to go out and collect it on the seventh day, you're going to open it up and it's going to be full of maggots. God will not be mocked. somehow it's coming out Kiriath Tava. I don't know if that's right, but I know it's translated graves of lust. They get to Rephidim after they left the desert of sin. There was no water again. So they quarreled with Moses. Give us water to drink. And Moses said, why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test? Why did you bring us out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst? Moses cries out to the Lord, what am I to do with these people? They're almost ready to stone me. He tells him on this instant at the rock at Horeb, strike the rock and the water will come out of it for the people to drink. He named the place Massah and Meribah because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested the Lord, saying, is the Lord among us or not? It doesn't show up in the 7 deadly sins in this form. But I'm of the opinion that the one sin that is the most pervasive, the most cancerous, that'll rot out your very insides and will put you at odds with the Lord faster than everything else is the sin of grumbling and complaining. What have you done for me lately? Or I deserve. I'm entitled. We need to understand some things, folks. God, we're not. And we need to start listening and trusting. And faith is you do it even though you can't see it. But you know you're supposed to, so you do it anyway. Amen?
Amen.
Because a little bit of that yeast of complaining can run through the whole church. And it can drag everybody down. We've been taught to take off the cape of gloom. Well, that cape of gloom was put there by constant complaining. And in its place, put on the mantle of praise. Which, by the way, the next time you're tempted to complain, shut your mouth and say thank you for something. That's the quickest antidote. And if you learn anything from Israel in the desert, majority does not win when God says otherwise. And I'm here to tell you, for whatever reason, for this flock, and we didn't ask for it. Mary and I have been placed here as your Moses and Miriam. And sometimes we don't know why. Because of the constant complaining and bickering and secret meetings and undermining and going behind people's backs. We need to go to each other's faces. And if you don't have enough backbone to say to someone's face, shut your mouth. How can I say it any plainer? Because it's going to destroy us. Some of us have gone through the arduous process, going back 3 years, to give this congregation back to God. Healing from the inside out. Screw tape letters. Autopsy of the deceased church. Revitalization. And you can complain and give excuses for ad nauseam. But everyone had the opportunity to go through it together. We didn't do anything in secret. And if you didn't show up, for whatever reason, you decided we didn't. And one thing that got said recently that went through me like a knife, because of all these changes you made, no, I didn't make them. God directed us to do this together. And I don't think Mary and I took too many people kicking and screaming. And if you chose not to participate for whatever reason, we accepted that and moved on. But the grumbling and the complaining and the undermining and the backbiting has to stop. And the quickest way to stop that is to quit participating in it. And if you're not speaking well of someone, or if you're speaking against someone, or if you're trying to orchestrate and counting votes, I can tell you it's not the Lord's side. Quickest way to kill your church and kill your preacher is the constant Chinese torture of grumbling, complaining, and refusing. So I relate very well. I have related with various flocks since 1975, and I don't care what faith family you're in or what town you're in, everybody acts the same. You just change the names of the faces. We're all grumbling Israelites. And the fact remains is, you get to grumbling, then I start grumbling. Because when you're around a grumbler, you become a grumbler. When you're around a praiser, you praise. Behold, brethren, how beautiful it is for brothers to walk together in unity. It's like the ointment upon Aaron's crown, flowing his beard down to the depths of his garments. A two-corded strand is hard to break, but a three-corded one is almost impossible. Pity the person who falls in a ditch and has no one to help them get up. But thank God when there can be two together and you keep each other warm or encouraged. It always amazes me how God knows the sequence in this book, or the sequence in the sermon series that He leads on our hearts to do. And a lot of times we don't know why. And then all of a sudden for that week after we've studied and prepared, we go, oh, that's what it's for. And God knew way out there that it was going to happen today and need to be dealt with today. I want you to know that Mary and I are not that good. Most of the time we don't know what's going on. And so when our light bulb comes on, it's just as shiny as yours is when your light bulb comes on. God has already delivered you. What are you complaining about? We're not talking about a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day. We're talking about a Lamb who died on a cross. What do we have to complain about? Really? And I know we're going through some rough stuff, some of us. You're better off going through it with the Lord than trying to grumble, complain, and ditch Him somewhere and go on your own. Sometimes your choice is go with the Lord or quit. You don't know how many times I've wanted to quit. You don't know how many times preacher friend of mine said he has a letter of resignation and he puts it in his desk and he's almost ready to turn it in every Monday morning. But it's not about what we feel or what we want or about us being in charge. It's remembering what the Lord's already delivered us from and being thankful. Oh, God of Abraham, praise. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The God of Moses. The God of David. The God of Elijah. The God of Gideon. The God of Jesus Christ. And of Peter. And of Paul. And John and James. For some of us, we can say the God of our fathers. And thank you, God, that we can say that. For others, it's the God of our mothers. Thank you that we can say that. But for those who can't even say that, I want at least to say thank you. Just because you're you. And we're not alone. Father, forgive us of the sin of ungratefulness. Forgive us for our grumbling, our complaining, our being out of sorts most of the time. Help us to understand you give us more than water. You give us more than to eat. You've given us our very lives. You've given us eternal life through Jesus Christ. And yes, we might have to wait a while for it. Help us to get over the instant gratification that we think we have to have. Oh, God of Abraham, praise. And we do. In Jesus' name, the answer to the promise of Abraham. Amen. Let's stand and sing. It's a time of invitation. It's a time of confession, repentance. It's a time for doing business.